All right, good afternoon. Thank you everybody for coming. For those who don't know me, my name is Rabbi Kenigsberg. I'm the rabbi here at Beit Knesset Hanassi. Many of you do know me, but welcome to everybody, and it's wonderful to be here. Have a full Beit Midrash here on a Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon, a week before Rosh Hashanah, and there's no better way to prepare for Rosh Hashanah than by studying together. I want to talk today about a topic which is quite ubiquitous in the laws of Rosh Hashanah, and it's quite strange, it's quite cryptic, and that topic is the idea of confusing the Satan. I'm sure everybody's heard this. Comes up in a number of places throughout the Gemara, throughout the Poskim, specifically related to Hilchot Shofar. We have this idea that there are different practices that we do on Rosh Hashanah or leading up to Rosh Hashanah in order to confuse the Satan. Who is the Satan? What is the Satan? Why is he confused? What is it that we do that confuses him? I can tell you that I'm confused, but we have to try and understand why he is confused and what that means. So I want to go through, because we'll see that this concept comes up again and again, and each expression of it is perhaps more bizarre than the one before. And hopefully by the end of this year we'll come out with four approaches, four very practical tips and insights into what we should be thinking about in Rosh Hashanah, how we can confuse the Satan, how this can help us to emerge with a favorable judgment. So just maybe by way of introduction as we start, I've said this word and we'll see where it comes up in the sources, but we say the word Satan, translated in English as Satan, which is probably the wrong translation. But how many of you, by show of hands, when we say that word Satan, how many of you think of a little red man with a pitchfork sitting on your shoulder? Okay? That's the image that I'm sure many of us have. That image is completely wrong. So get that out of your head. That's not what we're talking about. Not the devil. We'll see. Right? If you think that it's the devil with the pitchfork who's sitting on your shoulder, then nothing will make sense. And that's why it doesn't make sense. But we'll try and understand. So let's go through first. Let's see three. There are more, but three of the more well-known places where this concept comes up. And afterwards, we'll try and unpack it. So have a look at source number one. Source number one on the source sheet, this is the TORAH. The TORAH in TORAH Chaim tells us about why we blow the shofar. We have the minhag to blow the shofar throughout the month of Elul, as we've been doing for the last 3 weeks or so. Tanya, b'pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, Rosh Chodesh Elul amar Kadosh Baruch Hu leMoshe aleh alai ha'hara. On Rosh Chodesh Elul, that was the day that Moshe Rabbeinu went back up the mountain, up Har Sinai. This is when Moshe Rabbeinu goes up now to receive the second set of luchot. We all know, we all remember what happened the first time he went up. Went up for 40 days, came back down, golden calf, tablets are smashed. Didn't end so well. So now the shofar was blown the day Moshe Rabbeinu went up. Nobody should make a mistake. Nobody should get confused. Everybody knows when he's gone up, when 40 days will end. Okay? And that is one reason why, says the Torah, really quotes from the Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, which is an earlier source, why we begin blowing the shofar on Rosh Chodesh Elul. That explains to us why we blow the shofar on Rosh Chodesh. Does not explain to us why we continue blowing the shofar throughout the month. And there are other reasons that are brought, but the Torah continues. Therefore, he says, "Lachen itkinu chazal shutokin Rosh Chodesh Elul b'chol shana v'shana." Right? V'kol HaChodesh, and we blow throughout the entire month, Kadei lazhir Yisrael she'asu tshuva, in order to warn us that we should do tshuva. That's reason number 2. And reason number 3, the last 3 words in bold, is Kadei la'abev HaSatan. Here we go. Satan is starting to get confused. We're blowing the shofar throughout Elul to confuse the Satan. I don't know yet what that means. I understand awaken us to do tshuva. I understand there is a historical commemoration. Confuse the Satan. Okay, so that's source number 1. How is he confused? You ready for this to get even stranger? Look at the Bach. The Bach is one of the commentaries on the Torah, the Beit Chadash. He says, "Kedei la'abev HaSatan, shelo yehei noda lo matai hei Rosh Hashanah." The Satan knows, again, what he knows and what he doesn't know is very strange. Apparently, he knows that you blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. So we start blowing the shofar every day for 3 weeks, and he thinks, wait a minute, is today Rosh Hashanah? Is today... I don't understand. He doesn't have a luach. He can't look at the calendar. Right? He doesn't remember. It's not that odd. We've all been coming to shul. We've all been blowing the shofar. None of us think today is Rosh Hashanah. If it was, I'm standing here and it's all being recorded, we'd have a problem. But none of us think today's Rosh Hashanah. Why does the Satan get confused? We blow the shofar every day. By the way, we do it every year. He doesn't remember what we did last year or the year before, Okay, so something very strange is going on here. At this point, I don't understand anything. I don't know about you, but as I said, we're confused. I'm confused. Source number 2. Okay, so we know now that we are blowing shofar throughout the month of Elul. And we come to the final day of Elul, the day before Rosh Hashanah. So this will be next Wednesday, right? And on that day, the day you might think you need to blow the shofar the most, it's the day before we want to awaken to Tshuva, the last day of the year. The last day of the year, have your preparation, do what you need to do. So we don't blow the shofar. So source number 2 says the Magen Avraham. He says, Ein tokin lafsik ben tkiyot reshut letkiyot chiyuv. Okay, reason number 1 is we want there to be a hefsek. We want to recognize. Again, we don't want people to get confused. Now, why are we blowing the shofar? Not because we have a mitzvah, not because we have an obligation to do it, like we do on Rosh Hashanah, but now it's what's called tkiyot reshut. It's permissible, it's not obligatory. So in order to mark that distinction between the tkiyot of Elul and tkiyot of Rosh Hashanah, we have one day we don't blow. Okay? That's good enough for me. That would be a good enough reason for me. But the Magen Avraham is not satisfied with that. He continues. Towards the end of the line in source number 2, after the 3 dots, he says, Aval b'minhagim katuv atam la beva satan. There we go, again. So the Satan, so he doesn't know when Rosh Hashanah is, he can't follow, he doesn't know there's a day where he thinks, we've been blowing every day, now we don't blow the shofar, what's going on? Source number 2, but the most famous source perhaps, and again, I didn't do these in chronological order, but now we go back, this is in the Poskim, this is the Rishonim, the Achronim, but now we go back to the Gemara, and this is maybe the source of it all, and this is the crux of the matter. Gemara in Masechet Rosh Hashanah, source number 3. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak lama tokin b'Rosh Hashanah. Why is it, okay, we're not dealing with Elul now, we're dealing with Rosh Hashanah. Why do we blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah? Lama tokin Rahmana amar tiku. Says the Gemara, what kind of a question is that? Obviously you blow the shofar because the Torah said blow the shofar. Okay, and it goes a bit back and forth. It doesn't actually say explicitly to blow the shofar. It just says Yom Truah. So it's a fascinating discussion why the Gemara phrases it that way. But in any event, the Gemara refines the question and it says on the second line, no, the question we mean to ask is the following. Lama tokin u'marien kshen yoshvin v'tokin u'marien kshen umdin. Again, for the Ashkenazim amongst us, this is a very confusing Gemara to learn because we stand for all the tkiyot. But by right, the tkiyot before Musaf, we're allowed to sit. So why do we have 2 distinct sets of tkiyot? It's enough, we just blow the tkiyot before Musaf, that's it, we fulfilled the mitzvah. Somebody can't come to shul on Rosh Hashanah, somebody's in hospital, somebody's housebound, somebody's in the army, whatever reason. They have 1 set of shofar blasts, and that's it, they fulfilled the mitzvah. Why do we do it twice? Answers the Gemara, everybody together, Kadei la'arbeva Satan. Again, this Satan is getting really confused. By the way, that's all the Gemara says. There is an interpretation, we'll see in a moment, which I think is very well known, which is often quoted as the explanation of this Gemara. We'll see it's not universal. All the Gemara says is those 3 words, which again, we still don't know what they mean. Now, have a look at the next line of the Gemara, by the way. This is fascinating and quite frightening. The Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Kol shana she'en tokin la betchilata, any year in which we don't have the shofar at the beginning, meri'in la besofar. The word, there's a play on words here. Truah is the sound of the shofar, but truah also means to cry. He says any year in which we don't have the tkiyah at the beginning of the year, we have tears throughout the year, by the end of the year. Ma'itaman, why is that? The lob ya'arbev Satan, because the Satan was not confused. I still don't know what that means. But I'll just point out to you that when do we have a year that does not have a tkiyah at the beginning? That's a year when Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbat. Last year, you might recall that Rosh Hashanah fell out on Shabbat. And there is a fascinating piece, the Aruch LaNer, who we'll come to later, but is one of the commentators. He has a piece, Hidrei Cheshbon, he worked out that many of the years in which calamities occurred, which terrible things occurred for Am Yisrael, like Churban HaBayit the first time, and Churban HaBayit the second time, actually took place in years in which Rosh Hashanah fell out on Shabbat and there was no Tkiyat Shofar. He also says, however, that he does a cheshbon of years in which tremendously good things took place for the Jewish people, and there was also in a year in which Rosh Hashanah fell out on Shabbat. So there's nothing magical, there's nothing which is set in stone, there is a certain potential. Maybe it means that there is a different opportunity, there is a different avodah that we have to do when we don't have the shofar. But nonetheless, I'll leave that for you as food for thought. That's not exactly our topic today. But what we've seen here, so we've seen three cases, we've seen three things. We've seen that we blow the shofar throughout the month of Elul, that we stop blowing the shofar the final day of Elul, and that we blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah again and again and again. And again, this idea is repeated, in order to la'abev ha-satan. So at this point, we ask ourselves, who is the Satan and why is he confused and what is going on? Let us just look at one interpretation of this Gemara, one interpretation of what it means of how he gets confused. Now, we'll only strengthen the question and then we'll start to answer, hopefully. So have a look at Tosfot. Source number 3, I've given you the Gemara. Underneath you have Rashi and Tosfot. We'll come back to Rashi later. But let's look at Tosfot, because all the Gemara said was, you blow the shofar twice and that confuses him. So he says, Kadei la'abev ha-satan peresh Baruch, b'Yerushalmi, Bilah ha'mavet lanetzach. The Yerushalmi quotes the pasuk that says in the future, right, there will be no more death after Tchiat HaMeitim, in the end of days. K'tiv haya bayom hahu yitzka b'shofar gadol. We're told in the end of days, when Mashiach will come, there will be a Tchiat HaMeitim. That will be ushered in with a Tchiat Shofar. That is a Tchiat Shofar Gadol. One day the Tchiat Shofar will not just be the Tchiat Shofar of Rosh Hashanah, but it will be the Tchiat Shofar of Tchiat HaMeitim. Tchiat HaMeitim means there is no more death in the world. There is no more Malach HaMavet. As we'll see in a moment, Satan and Malach HaMavet, whoever he is, they are. It's the same. It refers to the same force. In other words, the Tzakah b'Shofar Gadol that will come at the end of days, that is the sign to the Satan. There is no more death. Nothing else dies anymore except for you. Your time's up. So he says the Yerushalmi as follows. Kad shama kol shipul azim nachada, bahil velo bahil. When the Satan hears the sound of the shofar the first time, he gets a bit of a shock. Right? He gets a bit, bahil velo bahil. It's like, maybe but right now, throughout the last year, we're all used to hearing sirens, unfortunately. And sometimes you can remember, certainly in the early days, or an ambulance drives past, and you hear that siren outside, and your heart skips a beat. You think, do we have to run off to the shelters? And then you realize, no, it's actually just an ambulance, or it's something else, or whatever it was, somebody's phone. Okay. So that's what happens to Satan when he hears shofar the first time. He's bahil velo bahil. He gets a bit taken aback, but he thinks, it's okay. It's those Jews doing their mitzvahs again. That's fine. I can live with that. Now in bold, V'kad shama tinyan amar vadai zeu shipur diyitka b'shofar gadol umatazimnei lemitbala. When he hears the second set of shofar blasts, he says, He says, I know they only have to do 9 blasts, 30 blasts, whatever, however you count. He says, they've already fulfilled their mitzvah. Now I hear the shofar again. What's the shofar the second time? That must be the shofar gadol. That must be the sign that now is the time of Tchiat HaMeitim, and my time is up. And then he gets confused. Mitarbev. Veleit lepnai lemeavad kategoria. As we'll see in just a moment, the Satan, whoever he is, his job is to be the accuser. He's the one in the heavenly court, as it were, putting up the arguments against us. So if he's worried, if his life is on the line, he's running for himself, he's got no time, he's got no pnai, he's got no availability to come and accuse against us. So when he hears the shofar the second time, that's what confuses him. Make sense? Doesn't make sense to me. Because, again, we can ask the same question, right? How foolish is the Satan? He can't look at the calendar. He can't look in the machzor. It says in the machzor that we're going to blow the shofar before Musaf, and it says we're going to blow the shofar again after Musaf. And you know what? We did this last year, and we did it the year before, and we did it the year before. Go back as far as you want. So we can't remember that this is what OUisrael does. He can't remember that we blow the shofar once, we blow the shofar twice, we blow the shofar 3 times. We're tricking him, but how stupid do you have to be to fall for the trick every year? And let me ask you another question. Made it the first day of Rosh Hashanah. What about the second day? We did it. You want to tell me he can't remember from last year? Okay, he can remember from yesterday. Come on. Could be a new one, no? So, what, a new one? There's a new Satan every year. That's a chiddush. Okay, so again, obviously something deeper is going on here. Obviously, Chazal are trying to tell us a message, right? It can't be It can't be as shallow and superficial as this. So to try and understand, let's explore a little bit more right now who the Satan really is. Okay, we don't know that much about him, but we are told a few things. And first of all, you see source number 4, we have the Gemara in Bava Batra. The Gemara in Bava Batra tells us, Amar Reish Lakish, hu Satan, hu Yetzer Hara, hu Malach HaMavet. These are 3, Yetzer Hara, Malach HaMavet, are very familiar concepts, very familiar terms. That refers to the Satan. All of that refers to the same entity. Let's talk for a moment about what Satan is not. Okay? He's not the devil. He's not the little red man with a pitchfork sitting on my shoulder or your shoulder or anybody else's shoulder. That's not who he is. He is certainly not the Christian concept of the devil, Lucifer, whatever, some angel that fell out with God and went off and made his own kingdom. We don't believe in that. That's impossible. Everything that exists, certainly everything that exists in the heavenly sphere is there to serve Hashem. It's there to work for. Nothing can go against his will. Malachim don't have free will. I think this was best expressed once. I heard this a number of years ago in the Olympics. So there was a commercial for the Olympics, and the byline went something like this. It said, "You are my adversary, but you are also my friend, because without you, I am a lesser man." Talking about how the competitors, the athletes who compete against one another, draw each other to achieve greater things. Ultimately, that's what the Yetzer Hara is there. Yetzer Hara does not have his own dominion. Right? Hashem created us with free will, created us with Bechira Chofshit. In order for us to have free will and in order for us to do right, there needs to be a temptation to do wrong. So the Yetzer Hara, which is tempting us, again, in a moment we'll see who he is, whether it's correct to talk about him. But he, or she, whatever you want, is there to tempt us. That is that force's way of serving Hashem. In order for it to be real free will, there needs to be a real temptation. He's got to do his job right. No, but he does his job right, as we all know. So that is who, so that is what, so the Yetzer Hara, the Malach HaMavet, the Satan, we imagine that on Rosh Hashanah, this court case, this heavenly court case is playing out, and he is the accuser. He is the one who is going against us, so to speak, ultimately for our benefit, but going against us, raising the arguments against us in the judgment. That's how judgment takes place. So he's raising his argument. So essentially what we can say is the following. When Chazal tell us La'abeva Satan, what they meant to say was this. Satan being confused means that the arguments against us hold no weight. The arguments are being stopped. The arguments are being paused. They hold no weight. We've overcome them in whatever way. That's what La'abeva Satan means. So let's try and understand how we achieve that by having 2 sets of shofar blasts. Okay, the first interpretation is Rashi. We're going to give 4 approaches now. Approach number 1 is Rashi. And Rashi says something very simple. Remember I told you this whole story of the Yerushalmi of blowing twice, of the shofar Rosh Hashanah, shofar Gadol, whatever. That's not universal. We all think the Gemara means that. The Yerushalmi says that. Tosfot says that. But Rashi doesn't go into that at all. Rashi says, Kedei la'abev Satan, you know what it means? He says, Kedei la'abev shelo yastin, that he shouldn't accuse against us. When he hears mechabavim et mitzvot, that the mitzvot are precious to us. That's enough. That's how we overcome the argument. In other words, so many times we do things because we have to, because we're obligated, because we want to check the boxes. Lesamen vi, as they say in Hebrew. But can we show that actually we do things not just to check the boxes, not just to do the minimum that we have to do and then get on with it and we're exempt and get on with our lives? Or do we understand actually this is our lives? That Torah means something, that mitzvot means something, that a connection, that a relationship with God means something. It's more important than anything else. And if that's our approach, so we don't just want to do the bare minimum, we want to go above and beyond. We don't just want to blow the shofar once, not just 9 times, not just 30 times. We're going to go 100 times. Mechababim times is precious to us. We want to do something. And it's important that it's not just something that we say, but it's something that we do. And Rosh Hashanah is a day, we know the judgment, we started talking yesterday between Mincha and Mariv, and we'll carry on today as well. Ein danin al-adam ela lefi ma'asav shel otah sha'ah. Person is judged on Rosh Hashanah only for who I am in the present moment, only for what I am doing right now. So the way to show that I care about the mitzvot right now is to do them and do them well. and go above and beyond. And that's what Rashi says, Mechababim et mitzvot. Right? Very simple, rational explanation. We blow the shofar extra times. We believe in Hidur mitzvah. We go above and beyond. We do more than what is required because we want to show our love for it. And that's enough. And then we imagine this court case is taking place and they see the evidence. They see the evidence, and the Satan can say whatever he wants. But if the evidence is to the contrary, then we've won. So that is approach number one. But I think it goes far, far, far deeper than that. As I said, that is Rashi. Let's have a look at the second approach. As we mentioned, Satan, we said, is Yetzer Hara. We said it's Malach HaMavet. I said, I would ask the question whether it's correct to talk about him. Because maybe it's not correct to talk about him, but it's more correct to talk about us. Ultimately, what is the Yetzer Hara? The Yetzer Hara is part of us. It is something within our own lower self. It is our own habits and instincts and thoughts and things which drive us down. And this is a constant battle, we know, which we're engaged in every single day of our lives. And listen to how Chazal described the Yetzer Hara. You see in source number 4, there's a pasuk in Kohelet. It says, Tov yeled misken v'chacham melech zaken uksir. Chazal tell us, melech zaken uksir ze Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara is described as a king, an old and foolish king. Remember we said he gets confused very easily. Gets confused very easily. That's the Yetzer Hara. And maybe, all these things that we started off with, maybe when Chazal, you're not going to blow the shofar one day, he doesn't know what's going on. You're going to blow the shofar every day, he doesn't know what's going on. You blow the shofar an extra time, he can't remember, it seems so silly. It seems so childish. It seems so primitive. You think, who would fall for that? Who would possibly fall for that? And then we think to ourselves, wait a minute. Don't we fall for that all the time? All the time. Every single one of us, and you can find our own examples. Now, I'll give a good way to illustrate this is maybe in the shul it's not such a problem, but there are a lot of people that have difficulty getting up in the morning on time. Right? And there's everybody knows the phenomenon of snoozing the alarm clock. Right? So, let's say, the alarm is set for 6 o'clock, and the alarm clock starts ringing, and a person presses snooze. And nowadays, you can check, everybody uses their phone as their alarm clock, so you can decide you want snooze for 5 minutes, for 7 minutes, for 10 minutes, you've got it all. So you set snooze for 10 minutes, and you think, I just need 10 more minutes in bed, 10 minutes later I'll get up, I'll still be on time, I'll still be the first one in Shachar, everything will be fine. And 10 minutes later, the alarm goes off again. What do 95% of people do at that point? It snooze again. You know what? It's another 5 minutes. Nowadays, you can program it. The first snooze is 10, the second snooze is 5. Okay, I'll get up 5 minutes later. And then what happens? 5 minutes later, you hit the snooze again. So before you know it, an hour later, you've woken up. And now you're running off, and now you're the last one in Shachar, because you're not, because everybody else did the same thing. So now let me ask you the question. What happens the next day? What happens the next day? So the next day you'll say, okay, look, yesterday I snoozed for 10 minutes, but 10 minutes actually ended up as an hour. I'm not going to do that today. So what are you going to do? You're going to get up straight away when the alarm goes off? No, the alarm goes off and you hit the snooze. And you think today will be different. And the same thing, and again, and it's day after day after day after day, and you fall for the same trick. Does it sound familiar? The Satan. He heard the shofar yesterday, he heard it the day before, Why is it a problem? Maybe that's the message. Maybe that's the irony over here. Chazal trying to tell us, you think he's so foolish, but that's you. That's the Satan, that's inside, and that's what gets confused. So Rosh Hashanah comes along, and the shofar, and we blow that shofar, and we say, don't get confused. Wake up. Do something different. That's La Beva Satan. Have a look at Rav Dessler. He doesn't say it exactly in these words, but he says, but he shows a similar idea. This is the bottom of page 1. Ibuva Satan shelidat kiyot imetziut betochenu. This is a reality within us. Again, as I said, it's not him. This is part of us. Ibuva Satan perusho ibuva Yetzer Hara asher banu. It's confusing Yetzer Hara, which manages to confuse us all the time. Rosh Hashanah is the day we're going to hit back and confuse him. When the tshuva that we have, when we hear the shofar, is so strong, again, here he's talking about, previously we said The Satan is the one who's accusing us, who's raising the arguments against us. Here we're not talking about raising the arguments against us, but we're talking about causing us to act differently, which is, at the end of the day, it's one and the same thing, because what are the arguments against us are the deeds that we've done. So the Yetzer Hara is going to lead us astray. But when you hear the shofar and that causes your awakening, that will stop him from leading us astray. Right, and that's essentially what he says. I'll add just one level to this, which is, and Chazal actually tell us this explicitly. They say, when does a person go wrong? When do we get led astray? When do we sin, so to speak? Chazal say in the Gemara that ein adam chotei elam ken nichnas bo ruach shtut. Person only sins when they aren't thinking. You aren't thinking. The bad news is, most of what we do in our lives, we do without thinking. Right? There are studies that show, I think it's somewhere between, the last one I saw, it's probably more than this, but at least 40% of the actions that we take every single day are out of habit. We don't think about them. Right? And I'm sure this has happened to everybody here. I remember I tell the story sometimes. My daughter used to be on a gun in Rechav Ibn Ezra. So when I walk from home, I walk to fetch her and I walk to shul. I started off walking the same way, but at a certain point, there's a different path. The number of times when I was meant to be walking off the gun and I find myself outside shul, or I'm meant to be walking to shul and I just find myself outside the gun. Why? Because it's habit, it's instinct. You just do. You don't think about it. Notice, by the way, that many of these cases of Ibuva Satan, how do we confuse them? Is we break the habit. We blow the shofar every day. We don't normally do that. We're changing it. We're doing something different. It's a new habit. And you know what? You're doing it for 30 days and it's getting rote. So stop. The day before Rosh Hashanah, don't blow the shofar. Break the habit. Stop. Get up and notice. You have a certain way, a certain format in which the shofar needs to be blown. Let's break the mold. Let's do it again. Let's do it extra. Break the habit. Break the ruach shtut. Confuse him, don't let us be confused. So that is number two. That is approach number two. Maybe saying about recognizing, and it's very, very humbling here, but recognizing that we're not as intelligent as we thought we were, maybe. We're not as rational as we thought we were. There's a lot of things that we do that don't make sense. And we understand the Satan gets so easily, just as he leads us so easily astray. So let's use that weapon against him. Okay, number two. Number three. I want to go back now to the Tosfot again, because the Tosfot that we saw, the case of the Yerushalmi, that was very, very, very strange. Right? Again, just to remind ourselves, we said that why is the Satan getting confused? Because the shofar has been blown twice. The first time, he knows that we're blowing the shofar of Rosh Hashanah. The second time he doesn't know. And he thinks this is the shofar gadol. This is the day of Tchiat HaMeitim. This is the time when his job is up. And we ask the question, okay, notwithstanding the explanation that I've just given, but we ask the question, okay, well, can't he remember? Doesn't he know what happened before? So here comes Aruch LaNer, who I mentioned previously. Aruch LaNer, one of the commentaries on the Gemara, he has a beautiful explanation. Have a look at source number 6. Rabbi Yaakov Ettlinger, Aruch LaNer says like this. He quotes here Tosfot, right, which is Vadai zeu shipura diitka b'shofar gadol, i.e. that this is what the Satan is thinking to himself. This is now the shofar gadol. So he says, Rabbi Makshir, many ask the following question, which we all asked in this room. V'chi b'chol shana yidag ken, right? Every year he's going to fall for it again. Achal sha'ah b'shana shavla she'en zeh shipura geula. He saw last year it wasn't the shofar gadol. So this year he falls for it again. And I add, again, maybe because the second day is the Rabbanan, but I add, what about the second day over the first? So he says, Laniut dati yesh lefalesh. Says the Aruch LaNer, actually, the Satan is more sophisticated than we gave him credit for. Lo sheisbol dezeh kol hashofar she'alav ne'emar v'haya b'yom hahu yitka b'shofar gadol. Nobody would fall for that, he says. He doesn't think that the shofar that we're blowing now is that shofar gadol. No. He knows this is still the shofar of Rosh Hashanah. Ela, kevan shezeh tok'im al seder atfilah. אחר שהזכירו מלכויות וזיכרונות והתפללו תקע בשופר גדול לחירותנו. He says, you know what the difference is between the second Tkiah and the first Tkiah? First Tkiah was before Musaf. The second Tkiah, why did we blow? The Gemara in Rosh Hashanah tells us that we have three unique aspects of the Tfilah of Rosh Hashanah, right? Malchuyot, Zichronot, Shofrot. Says the Gemara, what do we have to do? What's the work of Rosh Hashanah? We have to appoint Hashem as king. We have to remember, we have to chronicle the past, all the things that have happened. And how do we do it? B'meh b'shofar. So we've said now the Psukim of Malchut, we've said the Psukim of Zichronot. Zichronot talks about the past. We've said the Psukim of Shofar, which talk about the future. And what do we say? We say the Bazuk, we say Takab b'Shofar Gadol, right? This is what we're davening for. This is what we're praying for. And once we say that, and then we blow the shofar that accompanies those brachot, wow. So what is that? That has an impact. And what is the impact? He says, Nizkar, we are now in the second last line in the Aruch LaNer, towards the end, it says, Nizkar b'chol shana shevadai yavo ha'et. I know this is still your shofar of Malchut Zichronot Shofrot. I get that. Not that stupid. But when we talk about it and we daven for it and then we blow the shofar as well, it's a reminder that it may not be now, it may not be this year, but that shofar will come. The shofar gadol, there will be a time, we don't know when. But it will certainly come at a time, and that's what scares him. Not that it's happening right here and now, but that at some point it's going to happen, and then what happens? Says the Satan, then I'm up. Then I'm done. That's why he gets confused. That's why he gets upset. In other words, he recognizes something. He recognizes that, we'll put this in an analogy, that his Yom HaMitah, his day of death, so to speak, is coming. And when you realize that everything that we have is temporary and everything that we have is transient, and there's going to be a time when I don't have it anymore. So the question is, what am I doing here? And what is my legacy? And what's the legacy that I've created? And what's the legacy that I still want to create in whatever time that I have left? And how do I reevaluate my priorities? And how do I recalibrate? And how do I reset? And how do I think about what I'm really meant to be doing here? And that's Rosh Hashanah. That's exactly what Rosh Hashanah is about. Rosh Hashanah is all about making Hashem king. And part of making Hashem king is understanding how do we make him king? How do I make him king? What is my role in this great royal kingdom? And that's it. Not about anything else. So therefore he says when the Satan, Chazal here are giving us an analogy. They're saying again, the Satan within us, forget about him, forget about the red guy. It's not about the red guy, okay? It's about us. But the analogy that Chazal are giving us is there is an individual, there is a force, there is a power that hears the shofar, and that shofar is a reminder of how temporary everything is. And it's a reminder to reevaluate your priorities and think again about what the legacy is that you want to live and what you want to create. That is very, very powerful. And that's enough to silence all the critics. Because at that moment you hear it and you think about it and you truly internalize it, then you become a different person. Obviously, it has to be followed up later with actions, etc. That's why we have a Aseret Yemei Teshuvah and we have Yom Kippur and continues. But it has to start somewhere, and that's where it starts. And that's Rav Dessler explains this as well. That's why he says, that's why we have the Tutkiyot. That's why it's Yibuv Satan, because you could say, this is all good and wonderful. I mean, that's what the shofar is doing. Why doesn't it work the first time? Have a look at the top we're on the back page, the page that has number 5 at the top. So the photocopy is from Rav Dessler. He says like this, But Tosfot, Amash Amru Lama Tokin Miushav Umumad Kadei Labev et Satan. Okay, skip to the second paragraph. He says, Yadua shekitrug v'asata haynu hach. That's what we explained before. Whether somebody is accusing us or causing us to go astray, it's the same thing. We're talking about weakening that ability. Uma she'amru bahil v'lo bahil, haynu she'at'ololut alishona adayin eina poelet etzel adam legamre. So it's classic Rav Dessler. He says, the first time you hear the shofar, there's a little bit of an awakening. But it's not enough to make you actually change. You go back, you do it again. Subconsciously, all these, and I would add, therefore, it's not just the first shofar blast and the second shofar blast on Rosh Hashanah, but it's every single day from the beginning of Chodesh Elul. It all adds together. And that's what does something. Inyan shofar gadol shel hapam hashniya. Huloshem gamur. That's it. This is not just a fleeting thought, but this is something that's really going to have an effect. This is really going to cause a change in our consciousness, cause a change in our actions. And in truth, I think the Rambam says this exact point. Have a look at the Rambam, Hilchot Teshuvah in the 3rd parak. He writes, this is maybe one of the most well-known passages in the whole of Hilchot Teshuvah of the Rambam. He says, Afal pi shetzkiyat shofar b'Rosh Hashanah gzerat hakatuv. He says, remember, why do we blow the shofar? Remember the Gemara said, why do we blow? Lama tokin rachman amatiku. Why do we blow the shofar? Because God said so.
That's the first thing. You have to know that. That's why we blow. But, remez yesh bo. There is a hint. There's something it can teach us. Klomar, uru yeshenim mishnatchem v'nirdamim hakitzu mitardematchem. Right? Sleepers, awake from your sleep. Slumberers, arise from your slumber. This is where everybody knows the word slumber from here. V'chipsu ma'asechem. Search in your deeds. Think about what you're doing. Chazru b'tshuva. Come back in tshuva. Zichru borachem. Remember your Creator. Eilu השוכחים את האמת באבלי הזמן ושוגים כל שנתם בהבל וריק אשר לא יועיל ולא יוצר. I've put that sentence in bold. It says these are the people who forget the truth in the hevlei hazman, in the nothingnesses of time. Shogim kol shnatam, waste away all their days behevel varik, in nothingness. Asher lo yo'il v'lo yotzer, which will not help, which won't do anything. I don't know exactly what the Rambam was referring to when he wrote this, but it's difficult to think of a more accurate description of social media, cell phones, what many of us spend hours and hours on a daily basis doing. This is the world. This is what people say. We have these little black boxes in our pockets, and we say, have you ever watched? Watch people. You go anywhere. You go on a bus. You walk in the park. You were sitting at home. You whatever. And most people in the world, certainly under a certain age, but over a certain age as well, most people in the world spend most of their time sitting with a black box with their finger going like this. And if you were to tell the Rambam that one day there are going to be many, many, many people, right, I'm not saying throw out your cell phones, you should keep your cell phones, I have a cell phone, there are many good things that can be done, it can be used for Torah, it can be used for communication, it can be used for many wonderful things, right? I'm not saying to boycott them, but we have to use them wisely. We have to use responsibly. If you had told the Rambam that one day there will be people who have little black boxes and they will spend most of their waking hours and then some with their finger doing this, you know what I think the Rambam would have told you? I think he would have said, Eilu hashochachim et ha'emet ba'avlei hazman v'shogim kol shnatam behevel varik asher lo yo'il v'lo yotzer. That's that sentence that we just read. It's hard to think of a more accurate description. And again, it's quite humbling and it's quite frightening. And I'm sorry, I know I'm coming down a little bit hard, but it is Rosh Hashanah. So, but that's what he says. He says that, and so we hear the shofar. We can do that, and all the time, like we said before, we get caught up. We have habits. We have reasons. Whatever, it's fine. But there comes a point. There comes a day, and if it's not going to be on Rosh Hashanah, when is it going to be? There comes a day on Rosh Hashanah when we stop and we hear that shofar, and that shofar stops and shakes us up and shakes us out and wakes us up. And in the same way that the Satan is getting, it's not that we think now is the shofar gadol, but the shofar is a reminder there will be a shofar gadol. We've got a job to do here. We've got something to do. Get up and do it. Figure out how. Decide what are our priorities, what's real, what do we value. I think all these reasons really come together. The first thing that we said with Rashi, it's about valuing the mitzvot. You're only going to value them if you realize what's important and you realize what your priorities are. Okay? So let me just finish off just quickly. I know we're running out of time. It's getting late. But let me just mention the fourth idea, which I think is particularly poignant and particularly relevant to the situation that we're currently in now. And this is an idea that I heard from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, Zichron Levracha. And it's a beautiful idea. I think he said it's this. Have a look at the last source on the page. We have the Torah. The Torah says, Kadei la'arbev hasatan perush lama tokin miyushav kodem musaf. Why do we blow the shofar once before musaf? Chozrin tokin al seder habrachot. Then we blow the shofar again. Right? Lama maktimin et kol miyushav kadei la'arbev hasatan. That's what the Gemara explained. Why do we blow the shofar twice? In order to la'arbev hasatan. Which now, at this point of the shir, hopefully we have a little bit more of an understanding what that means. He says, Perush. He says, which set of tkiyot is it that confuses him? Is it the first set or the second set? Because it's actually the second set, which is with the brachot, that's the main set. So he says there are those who say the fact that you blowed the first time is what causes the sibuv hasatan. And there are those who say no, because you did it the first time, it's the second time. In any event, what emerges from this, and the Torah is very clear, many Rishonim are very clear about this, that the primary tkiyot that we have are the second set. It's the tkiyot that go with the brachot, the tkiyot that are part of musaf. And you know what the difference is between the tkiyot before musaf and the tkiyot during musaf? It says that the tkiyot before musaf are the individual obligation. As I said before, if somebody is not davening in shul for whatever reason on Rosh Hashanah, they will hear those 30 tkiyot by themselves. That's the individual. But musaf is a communal prayer. Musaf is Tfilat HaTzibur, the Chazarat HaShatz. We stand together as a community, and then we blow the shofar. And Rabbi Sachs said, Satan knows how to deal with us as individuals. But it's when we come together. It's when we are, how much have we spoken about it in the past year? When we come together as one, then we can achieve things that no individual could. Then any accusations that there may be against us begin to fade away. I heard the Kenigsberg Rabbi said a beautiful thing. He said, why is it by the mitzvah of shofar, it's the only mitzvah where we have a makre? We have a person standing there telling the person who's blowing the shofar which notes to Tkiyah, Shvarit, right? We don't find that by any other mitzvah. We could, by Kriyat TORAH, by Megillah, I don't know, we could have such. Why is it, and in truth, okay, it might be a little bit more difficult, but the person who's blowing the shofar could stand there, they could have the machzor open in front of them, and they could follow along. So said the Kenigsberg Rabbi, because the shofar teaches us that we have to listen to one another. The shofar is about, the mitzvah is lishmoa kol shofar. We have to hear the shofar. And the tkiyot me'umad is when we come together, and that is where the Satan has nothing to say. Every charge against us as individuals becomes null and void when we are a community, when we are a nation, when we are one people together. And this is the theme of Rosh Hashanah. We say in our tefillot, Yasu kulam aguda achat. We want to come together. I brought you just a couple of the psukim from Psukei Shofrot, source number 7. Called it United We Stand. Right? And these are psukim we say in the Musaf Amidah. Lo hibit aven beYaakov v'lo ra'a amal beYisrael. This is a pasuk which Bilam says. But he says, Hashem sees there is no iniquity, no sin in Yaakov and Yisrael. Is that really true? There are no Jewish people that have ever sinned? That's not true. No, but when we come together, when we are one people, then there is no lo hibit aven beYaakov v'lo ra'a amal beYisrael in the collective. Vahi b'shuron melech bitasef rashayam. When is Hashem king? When is he a melech? Bitasef rashayam yachad shiftei Yisrael. When we are all together, we can be one people. And that is another meaning, a deep meaning of La'beva Satan, about coming together as one. So just in brief summary, we saw 4 approaches. 4 approaches which are probably all connected, but 4 approaches. What does this mean, La'beva Satan, coming into Rosh Hashanah? Number 1 was Rashi, who said it's all about what we do, not just what we say, but how much we value our mitzvot and value Torah and value everything that we stand for here. Number 2, we said, was that maybe the Satan represents our own lower selves. Maybe the Satan gets so easily confused because we get so easily confused. And we need to stop getting confused, and we need to reevaluate and redetermine what we're here for. Number 3 was a very, very similar idea to that, about thinking about ultimately what is the legacy that we want to leave behind, and that is what the shofar encourages us to think. And number 4, finally, about Yachad Shiftei Yisrael, coming together, the Tkiyot of Yachid and the Tkiyot of Rabbim. So Bezrat Hashem, we should all be zocher this year, La'beva Satan. There's enough confusion, and there's enough confusion out there for everybody. We don't need any more. Let's send all the confusion to the Satan. Bezrat Hashem, Tichle Shana v'kilotea. All the curses should go out. Should be a new year. Techel Shana v'chotea k'tiva v'chatima tova l'kulam.